Hello, this is L2SM. I'm a little worried the room seems a bit crowded and it may get very hot in here. Blue sheets are coming out. If the blue sheets get full, obviously you can write on the back of them and in the margins. Benoit is leaving, so now we can actually have a revolution. Let's also do layer 4 service models. I see two people in Meetecho and I'm in Jabber as well, so I can be shouted at in Jabber. I'll start rolling this out. Yeah, that's quite good. Right, let's move straight to another vision. Yeah, so note well, we've got as far as Thursday evening. If you haven't seen the note well before, then you've really been asleep. So yeah, the charter is out there and the mailing list. The Jabber room is running. I'm in the Etherpad taking minutes. If anybody else wants to join in, that would be most welcome, but not necessary. Right, so our agenda is 5 minutes of waffle, 5 minutes of us just describing where we are with the work and what we plan to do, and then handing over to Giuseppe for 45 minutes to talk about the work in progress, the draft, what changes have happened, an open issue that we've got, and then to hear if there's any more open issues from the room. And then we'll just wrap up with 5 minutes worth of any other business. So where we are with the working group, we met IETF 97, so it's not so long ago. Managed to adopt the draft this year. Haven't had face-to-face meetings at IETF 98 and 99, but the design team, which is really the authors of the working group document and the chairs, met both those times to have a chat. And then we had two virtual interims online to progress the work, to discuss the issues that have been raised and to come up with resolutions. They were not hugely well attended, but we made quite a lot of progress in them and reported back to the mailing list. So we have a plan, which possibly that's not part of our job spec as working group chairs, but we decided to be efficient. It's a fairly ambitious plan, which means it's quite tight, but we think it's achievable. So when we built the plan, it was to start off with the interim in September, which we did. And then we took those decisions that were made and reported them on the mailing list to ask if there were any issues. And then Giuseppe posted an update before this meeting to fold in those issues. So that's great. And then our plan was meet here, which we seem to be achieving okay. And what we want to happen in this meeting is to capture a sort of final set of issues. So this is not a last call, but if you've been sitting on some concern, this is a really good time to bring it up so that we get it out and get it into the version that will go for last call. So we hope to see that new version by the middle of December, and then ask for what's effectively an early Young Doctor review. One thing we learned from L2SM was that a really good Young Doctor review is entirely valuable. So Jan gave us an L2SM one, and I think as a result he's on the hook for L2SM. and then we'll update and have this ready by the end of January, so that we can start and move into a working group last call in February, and hopefully be able to pass on to the AD before the end of February, giving him the opportunity to do an IETF last call and get it onto an agenda possibly before he steps down, so he can declare success at least in one thing in his life. Giuseppe, you're up, basically. Talk about what the objectives of this work was. Unless you plug this in, that won't work. Yeah, this is the thing. Yeah, we'll see whether it works. You might get that. No.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, question from the floor. Why is it the chairs still don't know how to operate their own laptop?
How your system administrator? Alignment with the LNE models. Where are we going? LNI and NE. So logical network element.
Yeah, it's support.
So you already done the change. I didn't look through.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Can you hear me? So this presentation is about the young data model for L2VPN service delivery. So, this is the structure of this explanation that we first present the objective, just a reminder about the objective of this work. And then we will go in deep with the document status, in particular with reference to the recent change that we have done, as Adrian mentioned. In particular with the recent change that we have done after the interim meeting of September. So we are now at the 0.4 version. Then we explain the support for layer 2 services that are considered in scope of this work. Regarding that, we have to say some words about the MIF relationship. And then we talk about the open issues and other working items. And we will open to the new issues that should be addressed in the next version. And then, we are looking at a relationship with layer 1 CSM that is a new working system. As a reminder, why do we need to define an L2SM? So why we need to talk about a young data model for layer 2 VPN service? Yeah, the work has been done also for L3 VPN services, though, so we have to do that. And in particular, this is not a configuration model, but it's just a communication interface between customers and network operators. So in this case, we provide input to automation and control for the SDN orchestrator level, and is the northbound interface for the SDN orchestrator. The focus is on IETF technologies, so VPWS, both LDP and BGP, VPLS, and EVPN. Of course, other L2 VPN could be considered in scope of this work if the working group agree about that. As I mentioned before, it's not a configuration model, so some technology-specific parameters have been defined because are needed for the end-to-end services as by definition for an L2 VPN. And the operation of the core network is in scope of the service provider, the network operator. So it's not a customer concern. This is a recap about the document status. We are at 0.4 version. So in particular, I would mention some recent change that has been made after the September interim meeting. In particular, we remove EVC and OVC related attributes. So this is why EVC services is not defined by IETF. And so we could add some reference to other model defined elsewhere, but we prefer for now to delete. The question has been done to the L2SM mailing list, so this is 0.4 version, we have just removed the EVC support. Another update to mention is the removal of the load balancing option, since access priority within availability can be used to support this feature. So it was a redundant parameter that was removed. The same for service protection attribute, since we have a diversity attribute under sites container. Okay. There is also a bullet that talk about the removal of security containers. Not there is security within the L2SM. It's just that we changed the name because it is another container. Okay, there are some repetition, but okay. Okay, what is L2SM service model? So this is the structure of the our service model. So there are two main containers that are services and site. And the most populated one could be site, of course, because it's an interface between customer and service provider and network operator. So it could be a site definition in particular. And that all the common characteristics are defined in service container. There is the support for L2 VPN creation, the support of one site belonging to one VPN, one site belonging to multi-VPN. This can be done, for example, if you can navigate the tree under site, network access diversity. Here we can define the group ID and the diversity. So we can define one site that belonging to one VPN or to multi-VPN. There is the support for one side with multiple logical access. Also, the same way, network access under access diversity. We provide L2 VPN with public cloud access. So under services, you can navigate. And so this is give you a very simple view of the L2SM service model, just to understand what are the parameters and what are the main containers that can be used. There is also the support for QoS requirements for QoS policy, multi-IS support, of course, and point-to-point network connectivity, and also multi-point network connectivity. So please review all the L2 service model, because I think it's a good work that has done until now. So but we need a little bit of effort more to complete. VPN service definition. So our purpose is to define a common base model that addresses multiple popular L2 VPN service types. As I mentioned before, we use our effort to concentrate on IETF-oriented technology. So the VPN, the L2 VPN that are supported here are point-to-point VPWS, connecting to customer side. Point-to-point or point-to-point multi-point VPWS connecting a set of customer sites. The multi-point for VPLS that connect a set of customer sites. Multi-point VPLS connecting one or more root sites and lift sites that cannot speak each other. EVPN support is also here, and also EVPN VPWS between two customer sites and also between a set of customer sites and as specified in RFC 8214 and RFC 7452. Of course, if other L2 VPN service type may be included, that there is the consensus of the working group, feel free to comment and okay, now we can detail some topics that can be interesting to discuss together here. So the first one was about the connection definition in L2SM model. So there is the port mode, VLAN mode, twin queue mode, twin any mode, and the lag mode. So under each site network access, we can define an Ethernet connection in data plane support. So there is the physical interface mode, .1Q interface mode with the definition of the VLAN mode, otherwise twin queue, twin any. And we can define S tag and C tag on PE in the case of twin queue mode, otherwise only S tag on PE for the case of twin any mode. And the lag specific parameters are addressed in the other attribute. In addition, there are some optional L2CP parameter between C and PE, and mapping between CVLAN and L2 VPN services is also specified. Here there is just an open question. So do we need to specify also S tag or only .1Q? And in particular, S tag is provided by the network operator. Could be this an information that can be considered for a customer. So in case of NNI, S tag is needed. So it can be considered, for example, optional. This can be a proposal. If you have another idea, please comment and we can address it. Okay. This is about the multicast support. In case of multicast support, we need to describe the multicast tree. We can see all the parameters that we can configure. We can set all the attributes. Tree type, traffic type, delivery mode, group to port mapping. So there is the support both to any source multicast, source or source specific multicast. Also the IGMT snooping is enabled and is support in the bridge domain. And for the MAC multicast group at site level, there is the VLAN ID, that is the VLAN ID of the multicast group, the MAC address group, the MAC address of the group, and the ports lag the same that are belonging to the multicast group. This is recently added in the new version. This slide explains how we can use the single home, dual home, and multi-homing support. There are parameters under site type container that defines the way we can achieve this. There is the site VPN flavor single. So the site belongs to only one VPN. And the set of site VPN flavor multi, the site belongs to multi VPN. And in this case, we have the use of access diversity parameter. And thanks to the access diversity parameter, group ID, and constraint type, we can support the dual home and multi-home.
Question. In the connecting to one ISP.
Yeah.
You would you want to consider um, connecting to two PEs? That's in EVPN. You have an active uh, services for the L2VPN.
Yeah.
I don't see it. You have dual home, but you're showing a
Yep.
two
I mean dual home.
dual homing. But is your dual homing shows seems like it is showing C two C's connected to one, or or one C should be connected to two PEs, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like how you show on the
Yeah.
top
Now
right.
it's not showing in the slide, but it's supported. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I understand what your point. Yeah. No, no, because this is just to describe the connection between C and P, but in case of C connection is supported. It's not just shown in this slide. Thank you. This is the support for multi-provider and multi-domain use cases. Particular, we make a section. We don't make no consideration about the general architecture in a multi-provider, multi-domain use cases because it's not in scope of this work. But we just say that in case of an end-to-end services um, can be done and can be stitching network access within um, segment 1, segment 3, and segment 4. For example, if we look at the connection between site 1 and site 3, in this case, the assumption is that the service orchestration layer have the visibility of complex abstract topology and can configure the separate, can set up the separate segment just in case have the knowledge of the composition of the end-to-end services. So this is also supported because the NNI is supported and the end-to-end parameters are also supported. So in general, the inter-provider and inter-domain use cases we have considered it and is supported by the L2SM. Okay, this is an open issue. In L2SM, there are some parameters that define signaling option. And for example, VC label, control wall that are used between the two PEs or between two sites, of course. But we have also some parameters that are defined between C and PE. For example, MAC learning, art suppression, and so on. So here there is an open question. Do we need to specify signaling option parameters by operator phasing model? So what kind of parameters? So we asked the working group to make a review about that because we need to check what are the parameters that the network operator can for signaling option communicate with the customer. Because the question is, what are the parameters that customer care about the PE of the network operator? So we have an idea, but we have made a proposal, but we have to check all the parameters that should be considered.
Hi, again, Himanshu from Siena. Um, yeah, I guess since all the operators are the authors of this draft, you guys probably have a better understanding of what kind of how you provision L2VPN service and what is as far as the what is required as in terms of whether you need to specify anything network related stuff because there is already a lot of stuff in the L2VPN device model, L2VPN Yang model.
Yeah, yeah.
But there needs to be some translation or something that needs to be at the top level, and then the controller can give those use some information to provision the network. Some other questions. So I'm just thinking aloud. With respect to the the high bandwidth like 500G pseudo wire, right? I mean,
Yeah.
whether would you would you specify something like that, which would require ECMP and all that stuff on um, the what kind of protection you would want, some OEM interoperability,
Yeah.
like instant, if you are doing
Yeah, the
CFM and
OM is not mentioned in this version of the slide, but we supported, of course.
Mhm.
We supported Y1731 for
1731,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
end
Okay.
to end, and okay, this
So
is
you
important.
you have that performance monitoring stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, logs
Performance
and
monitoring attribute is
okay.
yeah, is not unfortunately it's not mentioned in this drive because was not one of the last inclusion in the next in the last version, but
Okay.
we have
Yeah.
implemented.
I mean, all those things, yeah, those things that are useful.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, regarding your point, yeah, of course, as a service provider, yeah, I can say that the signaling option between PEs and PEs maybe can be omitted. Just we can consider some option, and we can just say that the customer could say about the technology and could know just about the technology and which kind of signaling option can be used between PEs and PEs.
One more thing just occurred.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Calendar service. I think I usually, L2 VPNs are, you provision once and um, it stays there and all that. But with all this advent of all this network programmability and all that stuff, there is you can support calendar service in your service model where you can just schedule L2 VPN service that that where that's when it will tell the device to controller to establish the L2 VPN service and then tear it down, and then when all the calendar based service, uh, you know what I'm talking about, right? It doesn't have to be permanent, that once you provision and it stays there forever and ever. It
Yeah,
can be instantiated at any time when user wants to use it, and then tear it down. So you just pay for the service used for the time being,
yeah,
for the time period.
So is that a life cycle management question? So I think what we tried to limit ourselves to was the, the tight description of the service,
Yeah.
not, for example, how it would be billed or when it would be invoked or even what its operational status is. And that's also what we did in L3SM. Now, we're open to have a wider discussion, but we're probably not experts on lifecycle management here. We're much more experts on protocol stuff and the service that can be built on those protocols.
Right. I'm thinking that the service provisioning aspects and combined with the calendar type of services would make it such a lot more value add for this type of work, right? um, because before it, you configure the device and it just remain the service forever, whether you are using the resource or not. But now that we have the controller and the network
yeah, no,
programmability
I
and so
understand.
on and so
I
forth,
understand.
right?
I understand your point.
You can add that in. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
that's just a suggestion.
yeah, yeah.
You
We
don't
can
have to do
consider
it.
this. Can make a question to the list and. Okay.
So this is Michael Schroff from Nokia. So regarding calendaring, so to me, this is a generic functionality that you would apply to all service models, not only the L2SM. So it's a very valuable functionality, but it's not clear to me why it would have to be in this model here. So to me, this is something that can easily be separate. So it's a well understood use case, it's valuable, but I'm not sure if it has to be in that model specifically.
Right. So in that aspect, it would be a similar type of piece of information as customer's mail address or whatever. It's outside the details of this service.
Yeah.
It's associated with it. It might be a different module
Yeah,
that is,
for
is
example.
attached. Yeah. Um, I don't know. Young is getting up. I was going to ask Benoit if he knows from his great catalogue whether anybody has done um, scheduling. He's probably not going to regret for it.
Young Huawei, going back to your signaling option, I'm not sure how useful it would be to specify desire from the customer because provider may not support that signaling option.
Yeah.
So even if you can ask for it, it may be just best effort requests without really knowing capability of the network provider, right? So I'm not sure how useful this information would
No.
be.
Yeah, no, it's good. Okay. Thank you.
Benoit Lowe. So you asked Adrian if there is any scheduling. Uh, I searched on scheduling. Yes, there are a couple of modules. I'm not sure that these are service scheduling, right? Which is a difference. Now I want to come back to what was said about scheduling. Yes, it's an independent Yang module. Yes, it's interesting for all the services. Now, here is where we start with an issue because that makes sense. But then you go into the service lifecycle management that we discussed already. And then, we always think that we need to make it very easy. It's up and down. And then maybe not because we start to have like, oh, it's pre-configured, it's dormant. Then you start to have like dependencies on the type of technology you have. If it's mesh or hub and spoke, etc. Is this like up and down? Well, it depends. If it's a hub, the spoke, etc. So somehow this full life cycle management start to be uh, service specific. So trying to get into a standard where we try to do the full life cycle management of with state that are service specific is maybe a stretch. I think it's a stretch.
Okay.
And then scheduling maybe is interesting. And I would like to have maybe scheduling. I'm looking at the catalog, but again, maybe this is in the same type of area.
Okay, thank you.
Is this the sort of thing that if somebody wanted to do the life cycle management piece, they would do as a separate piece of work and there'd be some whatever magic hooks Yang have to say, this is the life cycle management for this service instance?
I think so. I mean, it would be a mistake to do it in this, what is, I mean, in this Yang model, yes.
So Himanshu and Michael, since you were talking about it, does that address your?
And by the way, one more thing I want to say is uh, this is typically what MEF is working on with the life cycle orchestration management. So uh, they don't publish all of their models while they are working on it, but this is such a basic function in a service life cycle that I'm pretty sure they're working on it.
I think Benoit and me is in agreement here. So
Including that MEF is working on this.
including that other standardization bodies are working on this, albeit, I mean, it's a separate story.
And that we're better. Don't take it.
So just for my understanding purposes, maybe I understood it clearly or not. I will repeat. So the consensus is that it is a separate thing other than the services, but aren't there any service related implications with respect to reserving the resources for a so that when you are ready to deploy or activate, um, that you have a greater chance of provisioning the services, and so on and so forth. But I just mentioned because I think that's a huge value add for doing this
No,
thing, but
it's
I'm not
okay.
100% sure whether it's a standalone and then everybody inherit that, or every service will have to do something additional also, like L2 VPN and L3 VPN and they may have to do something
No,
additional.
but
for
I agree because
life
in
cycle
the
management.
SDN era we have to think about this topic. So it's okay.
I mean, you guys have such an aggressive schedule, so you may not want to consider it at all.
Yeah.
So that's fine also. That's not a problem.
Go ahead.
Um,
Any other issue?
yeah, so this was the spot at which you can say we've been reading your draft really carefully, and we're an operator and we sell a service, and it would be really useful if we could also do something, or um, it's not clear what your document says, or we think you've got a piece of broken yang, or anything, any issue. I tell you what, show of hands, who has read either of the last two versions? Oh, I see 5 hands. Go for it.
Resort from Nokia. I have a fundamental question about the model when we are saying that, for example, because this model is from customer perspective.
Yeah.
I'm customer of operator. I want to create a service with some specific objective and constraint. But as a customer, do I really care that I'm creating a service which is a pseudo wire based or EVPN based? I want to say I want to create a service with bandwidth of 50 meg. I need redundancy. I need dual homing. You go and do it. And do I care that this service is created using EVPN or pseudo wire or whatever you are going to do in the network? This is to me fundamentally breaks the whole idea of the abstraction from the customer. From operator, definitely you have to know you are creating using EVPN or pseudowire, but from the customer, I don't even know how to, this one is created. You go ahead and do it.
Thank you for for your point. But yeah, I think that customer may be interested in in technology. Is as for example, in your home you have a fiber connection, or you have the standard connection, now ISDN connection. You care about the technology who can be used. Maybe some customers are interested also to which kind of technology. I agree with you. Some customer could not be interested to technology to EVPN or VPWS and so on. But other customer may be interested in
But from your perspective, a big, a large majority of your customers are really asking about the technology when you want to create a service. What is the percentage of those who don't care and those
there are
who
customers,
care?
for example, my company is also MEF certified. So there are customers that are interested in MIF services. And MIF services have a certain technology specific definition also for the transport layer aspect. So it depends by the customer in my view. But I agree. Uh, we cannot expose every parameter. This is the question that I have done before. We cannot expose every parameter to the customer because just some technology, some few technology specific attributes can be shared with the customer because the other attributes have to be specified by the operator because the core network is owned by the operator. So
How
just
this model works if I'm a customer and I don't really care about the technology that I want to create a service. To create it and you choose the best one.
yeah.
Either pseudo-wire based or EVPN based, you pick whatever. So this model supports that the idea of creating a service, but I don't know what technology I want or I don't really care which one I want to use.
But we can support both cases because in case the customer don't care about the technology and the transport layer, we can make the parameter optional and we can give to the parameter a default value, for example.
Yeah, it should be because if you want to make it generic, it should be such a way that It satisfies those customers who really care about all these
Yeah,
details, and for those who not care and they just want to create a service point to point or multi-point to multi-point. You
yeah,
create this service as long as it satisfies my SLA.
agree.
So I think we take an action there to check that all of those fields are properly optional.
Yeah. We had this when last time it was presented. We had the same comment, right? Because there was a lot of overlap. I haven't read the latest draft, but I see that in your this thing you have removed a lot of stuff. So we do have to read your the latest
Yeah.
draft. Did you guys cross posted it to the BES and the PALS working group and all that stuff for people to review this draft? Because I don't remember seeing this come across. Maybe I missed it.
I think so. This latest couple of revisions haven't been cross-posted, but when we set up the working group and when we adopted the draft, we did cross-post, and the working group last call will get cross-posted. But you know, the point of having a separate mailing list and working group is to do the work in the right place. So occasional notification.
Okay. Well, now that I know, I will go
Tell
back
all your friends.
and I will tell my friends. All right, we should you should just send out an email on saying, hey, we have the latest L2SM Yang model draft. Please review it into different this working groups, right? And have a link to that. So that would help. That will you get lot more eyeballs looking at what is there, and you'll get more comments, right? So the other thing, you know, what the previous commenter said, the same thing we had said before, because there was a lot of, and I think you want to see it from the perspective of a customer doing with an online tool, so that it doesn't even talk to an operator or anything. You provide some tool, he sits down and fills all the uh, thing in on the windows, and bada boom, you know, the service is provision. No need to do anything extra, right? Everything is automated, right? So if you look at it from that perspective, that customer is not gonna know whether
Yeah,
it's an LDP or pseudo wire or you know what all
yeah,
those things are, right?
okay. But behind the scene, we have always L2SM.
Okay.
I want to provide some comments about the technology which supported the L2VP. As far as you know that L2VP mainly focus on large scale enterprise customer. Generally, they have strong IT staff, IT staff, so they care about the specific technology, for example, software, etc. So I think that this should be considered with this model.
Yeah, thank you. There are other slides.
Yeah. So well, let's just restate that we've got a couple of actions and one issue that has got a resolution. So there will be an update, but and I will send out a ping now to Bess. But now is the good time to take a look at this work so that when we get to last call on the next revision, we're not raising big issues.
Thank you.
So, Adrian, can we go back to your plan slide, which was 7 on mine, which is Benoit's slide. So, I've not seen many people reading that document, but thank you for coming here and presenting. Do you believe you will make the plan from Adrian and Shin in terms of updating and getting those issues closed and getting the feedback and the help from the other authors?
Yeah, the plan could work for me, but of course we need some more comments, some more feedback on the service model, of course.
And I'm wondering, how do we get these comments, right? So we have like operators doing this work, and
Yeah.
I much appreciate it. Would you have in your surroundings other operators who could help and review this? You know, I could have like trying to get some vendors to review this, but in the end, you know what you're talking about, right? Your peers also. Is there a way you could contact them? You know, don't broadcast everything to Nana, to the Nana mailing list, right? But think a couple of
No,
your
no. I
friends.
personally have checked the service model with my operational department in my company, just to have a feedback, because also my company have a solution, SDN oriented solution, and are working on young data model for specific service. And I think in my personal opinion is that there is a need of an L2 VPN service model, because for now the vendor develop a specific service model for specific service of the service provider. So it's important to have a common L2 VPN service model. So there is a good baseline to, and also the vendor can have a little effort more when have to give specific service enabled for a service provider. For example, when a vendor sells an SDN controller to a service provider.
Right, right. I'm also convinced of the need, but I would like to be over-convinced by the overwhelming feedback from all the operators, and I'm trying to
understand.
So, I mean, remember, Benoit, when we were setting up the working group, we spent quite a lot of time fishing for operators.
Yeah.
And we discovered that there were several classes. There were the ones who do not sell layer 2 services. They're not interested. There were the ones who were not interested in a Yang model to represent the service. And they're not interested. So we're down to a subset. You, I'm going to point the finger back at you. You probably have more contact with operators as a wide set than anybody else in the room. And can you find us other operators to review?
Right. So actually, I was asking because whenever we did the polling, right, then we found Giuseppe, great, and I was asking because you know exactly what you're doing. Maybe you know your peers directly, right? And if you do, this is great. Send those emails. Now, if you don't find people willing to review, maybe I'll try to find some more on my side. So
Your help is welcome. I can try to do, but also your help.
okay, so if you don't find anybody, I mean, let me know and
Okay,
I will try
good.
some more.
Okay. So I think there are several risks to the plan. One of them is that Giuseppe gets taken out by the mafia. One of them is that we get really detailed, serious review comments that cause lots of work. But that would be a good result. And one of them is that we get silence when we go for review. And yeah, the default always in the IETF is silence means, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yes and
And-
no, because this is operators doing work. So I've seen multiple operators there. And if we've got those operators telling us it's important for us and this is the way it works, I think this is good.
That's good enough. Okay, okay. So that one we can take off the risk list and we'll assign a bodyguard for Giuseppe. So we only have to worry about really serious technical review, and that would be good anyway. Okay, Giuseppe, do you want to just skip to your last couple of slides?
Yeah, the last two slides is just to.
No, it was the right time to raise that point, because this is any other business.
Yeah, this is the last two slides about the connection with L2SM. This is a new work in CCAM. And we want just to highlight the boundaries between L2SM and L3SM and L1CSM. L1, we choose this name because is an L1 connectivity service model. Connectivity model not is not a service, L1 VPN. And particular, if we consider a simple monolithic architecture in which we have the customer service orchestrator, and the service SDN controller, while L2SM and L3SM model the northbound interface of the SDN orchestrator, the L1CSM is modeling the southbound interface. In particular, the use case that we want to mention here is the multi-service for internal customers. So, for example, within the same service provider network, we have a common transport layer that share the resources with the multi-service. For example, we can have the L2 service department, L3 service department that can ask for resources to L1 connectivity department. So this is very useful for a network operator point of view because in general, a service operator and the organization of service operator can be done by different departments. And in particular, for an SDN-oriented architecture, we have also different network controller that can, and the SDN controller that can apply the configuration on different segment of our network. Any other business? Comment, question?
So depending on how successful we are with our plan, this is the last meeting of this working group, or see you in London and the next 12 IETFs. Thanks very much. Thanks, Giuseppe, in particular, for your work on the document.
Thank you.
Is there a second blue sheet out there? We've got one.